are now watching the Amazin Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another the Amazin Mets pregame show with me and your boy CP. Well, the Mets are 0-2. It was another bad game. Unfortunately, pitching didn't show up. At least starting pitching didn't show up. And the Mets almost had a comeback with a surprise home run from Brett Beatty. I saw that, got the fans excited. Beatty was pumped up. I really thought we were going to come back and win that ball game, but unfortunately, Mets fell short 7-6 yesterday on a nice, decent Saturday afternoon. And Chris, how you doing, buddy? Welcome back.
Yeah, man, at the game yesterday, great just scenes overall early in the game and even before the game. It was cold out early and then it got warmer and warmer as we progressed. Not the result we wanted. Obviously, the fans were into it from the beginning, especially when Rhys Hoskins stepped into the box. Obviously, we're probably going to talk about this situation here because we do have a couple of suspensions to talk about as well. As everyone knows, Carlos Mendoza and Yohan Ramirez were suspended because of the events that happened yesterday. But we'll talk about it. Great atmosphere, though. Is my first time at Citi Field for over a decade, and I love the environment. Got to catch up with some other content creators, Subway to Shea and Sons, Ibby from Tomats to his part. It was a great time, and just couldn't be more happy to have that experience. So hopefully we get a win in the books today because it's a brand new day, and that's the beautiful thing about baseball. You can talk about yesterday, and we will briefly, but we got a game coming up at 1:40, so let's do it.
Exactly. Got 160 of those bad boys left. So it's unfortunate we're 0-2 right now, but like today, honestly, is kind of a must win just for the mental health of the fan base and this team. Let's be honest. This team needs it. Carlos Mendoza, got suspended, got ejected, showed a little bit of a fight, a little bit of passion. And right after that happened, the Mets started to, get their act together and started to make a comeback. Fell short, but I like to see Mendoza getting in the umpire's face. I like that, especially what Buck did last year was basically babying these umpires and like hugging them anytime he went out there when anything bad happened to the Mets, call wise or getting hit by a pitch. All right, so Yohan Ramirez got suspended 3 games for what? I don't even know. He didn't hit the guy. The ball wasn't that close, and he is actually not actually taking on that suspension. He's appealing it, so he's not going to get suspended yet. So he will be available for today's game and at least for a couple of days going forward, at least probably until tomorrow, until the MLB offices get a hand on that. So I don't understand it. Look, do I think Yohan Ramirez was probably on his own trying to throw at him? I don't know, because the ball wasn't even close. And, it wasn't as high as people were saying, like he was going head hunting. If you look at it, it was probably about letter high to the back if he was actually going to hit him. It's MLB again, once again, going after the Mets that are trying to do everything they can to go after the Mets. And it's obvious with the suspension 3 games. I get maybe if you want to do 2 games because he's a reliever, he can pitch every other, couple days in a row. But come on, Chris, like you were there. It was crazy. Like, what do you think? You were actually there watching it live. What did you think?
Well, it was definitely intentional. I don't think anybody's going to argue that it was definitely intentional. So whatever Carlos Mendoza said in the post game, like he has to say that as the manager, you can't admit that you're obviously going to hit somebody. But yeah, it was definitely intentional. Me personally, we all knew it was going to happen. When it was going to happen, we don't know. The perfect time for me, first of all, as a precursor to all this, we have to actually talk about the events, and I'm sure you did on yesterday's pregame, which I didn't get a chance because I was driving up on Friday, listening to the game on the radio. We have to talk about the events that led up to that. That was no doubt in my mind a dirty slide by Rhys Hoskins. It was late. I understand maybe a decade ago, I was talking about this with a couple of my buddies yesterday. A decade ago, that's fine in baseball. You expect that as a middle infielder. And in today's day and age, as a middle infielder, there's so many rules set in place to protect you as a fielder from base runners intentionally plowing into you, whether it's at second base, third base, or even home plate with that catcher's rule, that should not be happening in today's day and age, right? So Rhys Hoskins knows damn well that you can't do that in 2024, right? Whether the game has changed in the right way or the wrong way in your eyes as a fan is up for you to decide, right? I didn't mind that hard-nosed baseball, but if we're getting away from it and we have rules set in place to get away from that, you can't do that. So I understand McNeil's frustration. He was valid in all the frustrations that he had. We all knew that it was going to happen, right? We talk about last year where the Mets pretty much wouldn't retaliate. A lot of people didn't want them to retaliate. A lot of people wanted them to. What that changes in your mind, I don't know. But nonetheless, I feel like Carlos Mendoza was going to do this at some point. Whether it's actually coming from Carlos Mendoza or whether it's coming from Yohan Ramirez himself, nobody knows, like you just said. But it was bound to happen. You need to set that tone early on that other team's not going to mess around with you and push you around like they did last year. For me, the perfect time to do so, maybe in a little bit of a less obvious way, was early on in the game, right? Second and third, it was 2 outs, I believe, and this is when Rhys Hoskins hit the double down the line. You had first base open. If you're going to do something about it, you should have done it then very early into the game and not make it as egregious as Yohan Ramirez did to not get Luis Severino thrown out very early into that game, because I think that was the concern. If you're going to do it with Luis Severino, you just messed up your whole starting pitching in the afternoon by getting your starter tossed. So I think that there was a better situation to do it. They bypassed a couple at bats, let Rhys Hoskins pretty much torch them, right? The couple at bats prior, and then they do it late in the game. So I'm not really sure the timing of it was right, but nonetheless, I think it needed to be. I think it needed to happen. I think it needed to happen. What is your take, Rob? Because I didn't get to hear your take on the whole sliding situation. I know that you're probably going to rehash it here, but what was your take on that?
So what I talked about yesterday on the pregame was it was a dirty slide, right? And the other reason why it should have been a double play because in the spectrum of the rule, right? You're protecting the shortstop or second baseman. The reason why he should have been called, it should have been a double play because of an illegal slide, was the fact that Jeff McNeil was on the back side of the bag where his foot was. So the only way to hit Jeff McNeil was to go past the bag with his leg, and he didn't. Yes. And you're supposed to slide direct. If you're sliding head first, feet first, you're supposed to slide directly into the bag. And if you slide out, above the bag and hit the player, the position player after that, then it's a legal slide. You just have to stay within the confines of the bag. He never hit the bag with his feet, which was the problem why it should have been an illegal slide. And on top of that, the replay came back way too quickly, which is another reason why after the Buck Showalter first year and he was constantly winning replays and constantly getting calls changed, all of a sudden MLB, it's a big thing now with replays with the Mets. That replay came back way too fast. You saw he slid late. His slide was happening when he already passed the bag. You can't hit Jeff McNeil. Absolutely. Yeah, you couldn't hit Jeff McNeil unless you slid late. And he never touched the bag. If you look at it, he didn't touch the bag until his thigh hit the bag. So his knee to his feet was already into Jeff McNeil. That's why it was an illegal slide. And in the spectrum of the rule, it was a dirty slide. So yes, the Mets had every right. Jeff McNeil had every right. He could have been very badly injured. And when you have that rule in place, you make position players, the second baseman and shortstop, more comfortable around the bag. So if this rule is gonna make the players more comfortable around the bag, then they're not going to look and expect that, because Jeff McNeil did what he was supposed to do. He was in the back part of the bag, not blocking the front part of the bag, giving the lane to the runner. So Jeff McNeil did everything right, yet the Mets get penalized, not only in that game where the double play should have happened, which also actually caused an inning to make them score a run. It affected him in game 2 because of the threat of throwing at Rhys Hoskins and possibly having what happened where you got the pitcher thrown out in the game, pitcher got suspended, and your manager got suspended. So it was a trickle-down effect, not just in game 1, but also in game 2. That's the problem that I have with the whole slide, was that One, the replay came back way too quickly, which told me that MLB was never changing that call because, well, you're not going to give the Mets any credit. And two, it was a dirty slide, Chris. That's my biggest problem with the whole broad spectrum of this slide.
And I love what Mr. Nobody says here, saying in the chat, saying sad part was it was opening day and this guy was already trying to take somebody out after, and I was just about to type this comment out, but Mr. Nobody, that's right. And after Rhys Hoskins sat out the whole entire season with a knee injury, a major knee injury himself, if Jeff McNeil's leg buckles a certain way by sliding right into him late, then his season is done as well.
Yeah.
Like, you would think that someone would know better that just sat out an entire season with a major knee injury, but apparently Rhys Hoskins doesn't. So I'm not exactly sure what he was moaning and groaning about as well, doing the little crying little symbol to Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil, like, I don't fault him at all for having that reaction. And Rhys Hoskins is lucky that Jeff McNeil didn't get up and just slam his head into the ground when he was already down, because that's someone's livelihood you're messing with at that point.
Yeah,
and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, yeah, Jeff McNeil got the contract, but if he's ever going to get another contract in his career after this contract's done, then this injury, this knee injury, or what would have been a knee injury or whatever lower extremity injury would have just done damage to that as well. So like I said, it's just morals versus not good morals, especially when you're out there on the base path. You're a baseball player. The other guy's a baseball player trying to make a living out of this. And it's just not something where you got to look out for the fenceless fielder that was out of your way already. Like you said, and at the end of the bag, he was out of your way. You just didn't have to slide late. And so, yeah, no, I agree with you. The suspension is bogus. The Yohan Ramirez suspension is what it is. I could have seen 1 or 2 games, like you said. But why are we suspending Carlos Mendoza? Why are we suspending Carlos Mendoza?
Well,
you don't even have any evidence that he was the one that sent the call in there. So why are you suspending the manager?
Here's the other thing. Pat Murphy, I know you were at the game, so you didn't hear this. Pat Murphy said post-game interview that he didn't believe it was intentional. So if the manager of the other team didn't think it was intentional, now Pat Murphy was protecting his player when he was arguing, so that's okay. I respect that. But he said post-game, when the emotions calmed down, he says he didn't believe Yohan Ramirez was throwing at him. So if you got that from the other manager, then what was MLB thinking? Now, was it something that the Mendoza or Yohan Ramirez said to the umpires? And that's what went back to Major League Baseball? That's the only thing I can think of.
Was there a runner on when that happened? Because I completely forget.
I think there was one runner, if I'm not mistaken. I believe there was a runner on second, if I'm not mistaken.
But for me, it was like, the reason why I thought it was intentional is because Yohan Ramirez ran directly to home plate as soon as it happened. So there was no runner on third. I'm not sure. Listen, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So you're right. There was a runner on. I don't know where, but then there was a runner on third. It must have been, because if Yohan Ramirez was running to the plate in a wild pitch, then he would have to cover home plate because the catcher was going to get the ball. No.
Well, there's runner on first. I'm pretty sure the runner's on first, like Joel was saying. Runner was on first, so that's why it didn't make sense. If the runner was on third, which I don't think it was at this point, then I get running to home plate. But if there's a runner on first, that makes a little bit. I don't know. Listen, I like it, to be honest with you. I don't fault Yohan Ramirez in any way. I like it. He wanted to smoke. I like it.
But could we freaking hit somebody, please? Sean Estes. You know, we go on and on with all these damn pitches that can't hit a batter. Listen, if you're gonna do it, look, I'm not saying hit the guy in the back of the head. I don't want that.
No, definitely not. No.
Put a 98 miles an hour fastball in the back of his numbers, please. Like, let's not. Could we please do it? You know what? You can't do it today unless, you know, it's a blowout game either way. But you need to win a ball game here. Like, you can't get swept the first series of the year at home. You just can't. Going into a Tiger series that's a young team that can be dangerous, that doesn't care about anything, and you can't have a Tigers team come in here and go in 0-3. It's a dangerous game to play. You got to win today. I don't care what you got to do. You got to win today, Chris.
Listen, we're talking here about unwritten rules of baseball. It's very hard to judge, right? A lot of people are going to have varying opinions, right? People who've watched this game for a while, maybe have even played it, knows that you do something like that, you're going to have to expect some retaliation, right? Other people are going to be like, it's over. You had your chance in the first inning to retaliate, or the second inning, whatever it was, when he came up to the plate. You didn't do it. You move on. Why are you doing it innings later? I understand that. At the end of the day, it is what it is. They sent a message. They didn't completely hit him. I'm never advocating, right? I just talked about these players' livelihoods. I'll never advocate to throw at the guy's actual head. Obviously, back of the numbers does just fine, or the waist. Okay, whatever. The suspensions for this is just absolutely egregious. It is what it is at this point. We're beyond it. I think we needed to talk about it, address it, because obviously very early on, we see some chippiness from this team. And I like it. I mean, if anything, if this is going to fire you up, maybe win today's game. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I think yesterday should have been the game that had fired you up and you should have won. But nonetheless, it was not a great performance. I know Luis Severino gave up a couple of cheap hits, a couple slow rollers. They didn't really start off great with the whole Zach Short play. I don't know if they gave it an error or a hit. I think they gave it a hit. 12 hits on the day is just simply not acceptable from Luis Severino, and it is what it is. We are here on Sunday talking about a Tyler McGill start, so hopefully we get one on the board here, because going into that Tigers series with a sweep would not be great for the New York Mets in terms of the overall just vibes of this season so far.
People talking in the chat about the Pete Alonso going to I think it's a Zach Bryant concert, and Jeff McNeil was there.
I could care less.
I don't care. Listen, guys, you got to understand this. These guys have lives, all right? They go home to families. They go home to do things in their personal lives. I don't care what they do in their personal life, right? As long as you show up on time and be ready to play a game, it doesn't matter. Pete Alonso hit a home run yesterday. So it clearly didn't affect them, right?
Went 2 for 4. Had a good game.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not the end of the world. Like people got to live their lives. They're human beings. I know they're professionals, but unless he was late to a game or was, piss drunk and couldn't start the game because of that and hurt the team overall, then it really doesn't matter. They got to live their lives. What are you going to do? Go home and cry in a corner? No, because being a professional, you got to come back the next day and do it again. So I don't worry about that stuff. But Chris, let's get to game 3. Tyler McGill on the mound. Colin Rhea is on the mound for the Brewers. Here we go again. Jeff McNeil in the cleanup spot. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I put anybody else there besides Jeff McNeil. If Jeff McNeil is another pop-up with men on base, I'm going to absolutely go insane. And, Lindor hasn't been good either, but Jeff McNeil was in a couple of spots. I think my cat's going to, destroy something. What are you doing, buddy? Sorry about that.
Okay. No, so you make a great point. It was a perfect way. It would have been a perfect way to respond after that 3-run first inning by getting some more runners on the board or getting some runs on the board in that first inning for the Mets, and they just couldn't get it done. And I hate to be that guy and just criticize the lineup time and time again, because we talked about opening day when we did the pregame show. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a wait-and-see game until JD Martinez gets here. But, I don't get the infatuation of needing Jeff McNeil in that cleanup spot. I also don't want to complain about the lineup day in and day out, but I just don't understand it. Okay, it is what it is. I just don't understand it, right? Francisco Alvarez went through yesterday, hit a bomb. What does he have to do to get up in the lineup? I know he went from 7 to 6 or something like that. He was 7 opening day. But man, I just don't get it either. But one thing I'll say, I like Starling Marte is at least showing some competent at bats. At least he's getting his season off on the right foot.
He's been the best hitter in this lineup. Just good at bats, even when he doesn't get a hit or anything like that. He's put together good at bats. And I talked about it in the pregame yesterday. I was like, all the talk that we talked about in game 1 of the pregame for us about Marte being an X factor and his slow bat in spring training, he's put together the best at bats in this lineup so far out of all people. So, I don't understand it has to be analytical with Jeff McNeil, but I don't know what analytics tells me that Jeff McNeil should be in the middle of this lineup. It makes no sense. He's not hitting for average. He hasn't hit for average. He's not a power guy. He's not a run producer. So why put him in the middle of the lineup when you got your 2 best run producers in Lindor and Alonso 2-3? That makes no sense to me. If you wanted to put Alvarez, anybody else, you can even put Beatty in the cleanup spot because he is supposed to be a run producer. Anybody else, I wouldn't care. Jeff McNeil makes no sense. Jeff McNeil should be batting 8th or 9th or 2nd. That's it. He's an average hitter, and this is what gets me frustrated, is that the organization still tells me that they still love Jeff McNeil way too much. Jeff McNeil does nothing well if he doesn't hit for average. We talked about this 1,000 times. He's okay defensively. He's all right defensively. Yes, he can play multiple positions, but the Mets are valuing him too much. Like, they're playing this game like, oh, let's just throw McNeil in here because, well, we don't have JD Martinez. Well, you know what? Bring him up then. Like, what are we doing here? How many at-bats do you need? 15, 20 at-bats, right? 3 games. How about that? Three games, 4 games max. Bring them up. There needs to be 10 days, 14 days of this crap because I'm sick and tired. Because, like, where are you going to put Jeff McNeil when JD Martinez here? If you're going to put him, if JD Martinez is in the lineup tomorrow, Jeff McNeil is probably batting 7th or 8th. So what are you telling me? You're telling me that you have no idea where to put Jeff McNeil in this lineup because cleanup makes no sense, Chris. I mean, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I didn't really get the whole Tyrone Taylor batting cleanup yesterday as well. It is what it is at this point. It just seems like they just don't want to put Alvarez in that position to be in the middle of the lineup like that.
Speaking of Taylor, they brought it up during the pregame yesterday that analytically, he's had it percentage-wise, he's had his best games when he percentage-wise in a cleanup spot when he was a Brewer. So when he played, so I guess that's the reason why. But again, I was trying to look at all the stupid analytical stats that I don't care about, just to understand what the Mets are trying to do with Jeff McNeil. I just don't think they don't have any understanding of where to put this guy. They don't have nowhere to put him because if he's batting 7th or 8th when JD Martinez comes, it's gonna make you look incompetent because you don't know what to do with Jeff McNeil. But
when JD Martinez gets to this team, obviously he's going to bat behind Pete Alonso. But do you move everybody up or down one and then put Starling Marte at the 2 spot, or do you think this is going to be the top 3 for the foreseeable future?
I think it's going to be the top 3. I think they like this lineup because they performed extremely well last year when they were 1, 2, 3 like this. That's why it's very odd to me. Like Marte deserves to be the cleanup guy right now because of the at bats he's put together. You know, Alvarez, I don't know why you don't do it. The kid's confident. I would do it. They're afraid of it for whatever reason. But I do like Alvarez being in the lineup as the DH, which I complained about a lot last year. When he wasn't catching, he wasn't playing. Put in Alvarez behind the plate. And you can do this 2 or 3 times a week if you really wanted to, just to protect his legs overall. As long as he's in the lineup with that bat, I'm fine with. But I do like the lineup. I do like Mendoza giving Beatty the opportunity to be back in the lineup. I know it's, you know, he wasn't in the lineup yesterday. People were saying, oh, it's because he was left. There was a lefty on the mound. No, game 2 of the season. If it was game 65, I would say, all right, tough lefty on the mound. Give him a break. No, because he looked so bad at the plate in opening day. That's why he wasn't in game 2 in the lineup. Now he hit it off a 3-run bomb against a lefty late in the game, but it was a soft toss. It was great. Yeah. I loved it. I love the passion. He needs more of that. And he looked like he went to that at bat with a plan and anger. He needs to keep on doing that. I think, look, he's got a beautiful swing. You see how far he can hit a ball. The exit velocity, I think, was like 110 off of that hit. The guy has power. And I believe he could be a run producer, but he has to show it consistently, Chris.
And the simple fact is we need him to be an everyday player. Nothing more, nothing less, right? Because Zach Short, love you, dude. Congrats on making a team. I think you deserve to make the team, but you're not an everyday starter, or you shouldn't even be a platoon player at the major league level. Brett Beatty needs to be an everyday player, and Zach Short gets his reps however he gets his reps elsewhere, right? So that's going to be huge for this team. And I see people already talking about Luis Angel Acuna in terms of Jeff McNeil not turning it around. Way too early for that discussion, but yeah, I agree with you. Brett Beatty definitely needs to show some consistency. I like the start of it coming into albeit you need a big at bat, you need a big hit, and he provided it for the Mets yesterday. It was a nice little moment between Beatty and Alvarez in the dugout as soon as he got back into the dugout from the home run. Love it. Let's see what he does consistently from here on out. And I agree with you. I cannot sit here and just fathom the fact that the Mets, like, it's the reason why he wasn't in game 2. You're absolutely right. Not because there was a lefty on the mound. You're not playing matchups with a 24-year-old young kid who you need to see every day with the sample size. You're not playing matchups in game 2, right? At least I hope they're not. So I
At
agree
least
with you on
not
that
in the
aspect.
beginning of the game. Maybe late in the game, yeah.
Right. Yeah, not at the beginning of the game. That should not be that should not be your thought when making the lineup is playing matchups because there's a lefty on the mound. That's why you're going to sit Brett Beatty. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you. But honestly, shout out to Shay and Sons. I believe it was Key who was telling me about like the whole. He was circling back to the whole Mark Vientos thing and talking about, well, if Zach Short was always the backup plan for Brett Beatty, why wouldn't it have just been Mark Vientos? And honestly, I know people have their reservations about that, but honestly, I'm kind of in the same line of thinking. But we can go and spin like circles around that various topic. I'm not going to bring it up here. I just wanted to like just bring that, reintroduce that because I still just don't understand
I
why
don't get it.
Mark Vientos wouldn't be a bench piece at this point for the Mets.
No,
But
no,
nonetheless, we did go over this as well a couple days ago, and I know your
yeah,
stance on that. But for me, it's like a situation like that you could use some power. I don't know. It just would have made perfect sense to supplement Mark Vientos with Brett Beatty even to begin the season. But I understand it. Zach Short's position, he earned it in spring training. I get that. I get that aspect.
I
But just
think that's
something to
what.
reintroduce here.
Well, you know what? Ever since they got JD Martinez, their stance on young players getting at bats, I don't think it really matters. I think it's the fact that you earn it, you're in. And JD Martinez, we talked about this on the season preview. Vientos didn't earn 3 possible spots: the third base role, the DH role, and a bench role. He lost all those roles. He had 3 opportunities to make the team and didn't earn it. Brett Beatty came on late. Zach Short had a great spring. And with Zach Short, Beatty won the third base job basically by default. DH, I guess I don't know what their concern was with Vientos though. Even if they wanted to put him on the bench and maybe make him the DH, like I just don't get it. Like, are they if DJ Stewart continues to struggle and he struggled in big spots the first 2 games of the season, would they put Vientos in the spot of DJ Stewart? Because I know it's more infield outfield situation, but why not? Like, you already got Tyron Taylor who can play all 3 outfield positions. DJ Stewart is kind of inconvenience in this roster, to be honest with you, because the hype of DJ Stewart, I don't think
He's
should have
bad.
ever been there
He's
because
bad. He's bad.
yeah, again, he's a failed prospect that showed something last year, but that's it.
Right.
Like, did he deserve the contract, the 1-year deal? Yeah, absolutely, he deserved it,
Mhm.
but
Sure.
he didn't deserve it during spring either. So I just don't understand that logic. Like, I understand, the organization likes him and he's a good teammate and all that stuff, but we need performers here. The same thing that goes for Vientos or Beatty or anybody else that doesn't perform. And I just don't know. The roster construction is a little odd to me. Like, I'm not gonna go crazy about it because the Mets did score 6 runs yesterday. Like, they should have won that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
You gave up 3 runs in game 1. You should have won that game. Right? If you give up 3 runs, if I told you before this game started on opening day, the Mets are giving up 3 runs, you'd be like, oh, that wins in the bag. Like, I would think that's what you would have thought of. So the lineup, I guess it's okay besides the Jeff McNeil situation. What are your thoughts about Tyler McGill today? Do you think he's going to be pumped up, knowing that this team needs a win? What do you think his line's going to be, and how many pitches do you think he's going to throw?
I sure hope so, man. We need some consistency out of the starters. I know Jose Quintana had like an albeit, I guess, decent performance, but he wasn't locating his pitches. He wasn't even able to go 5 innings. Luis Severino giving up the 12 hits. We need some consistency from the starters, and that was our main point going into the season. What are we going to get out of the starting pitching, especially with Kodai Senga gone? Well, the first go around, the first 2 guys didn't really perform up to expectations. I really hope that today on March 31st, 2024 is the start of something good for Tyler McGill moving forward. Like, clean slate. This is just my optimism speaking up and speaking something into existence here. But we all know Tyler McGill over the last couple of years has not put it together, right? Injuries have plagued him. He just hasn't looked the same. It's been a struggle for Tyler McGill day in and day out, outing after outing, to make use of however many pitch counts or whatever the pitch count is for him designated for him, right? He struggles to get through 4 innings, even 5 if we're lucky with a high pitch count. Albeit he does work out of jams relatively regularly, but let's not even get into those jams today and let's have a decent outing. I would be happy with a clean, even 5 innings pitched from Tyler McGill, maybe 2 or 3 earned runs. Maybe the offense shows up in a big way like it did yesterday, hopefully earlier rather than later, and hopefully the Mets come away with a W. So I'm going 5 innings pitched. Probably just under 100 pitches, I would say, is going to be the leash for Tyler McGill the first time around. And a couple earned runs probably is going to be inevitable. But what is his put away pitches going to look like against this Brewers lineup? Can he put batters away, or is he going to go through simultaneous at bats, needing 8, 9 pitches to get an out? Or is he going to shut the door on these hitters early? That's what I want to see out of Tyler McGill. That's going to be a very tall tale sign of what's to come for Tyler McGill. He put together a great spring training, Rob. He did.
Yeah.
I think he earned it. Whether he earned it over a Jose Butto, I don't know, man. I don't know. Because Jose Butto was lights out in spring training. But nonetheless, that was Tyler McGill's position to lose because we saw him on back-to-back opening days getting the nod on in the rotation because of injuries, right? Especially the opening day nod.
Yep.
What are we going to get from Tyler McGill? This is going to be a huge game, man. This is going to either make or break my confidence in Tyler McGill this season. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that's very big pressure to put on him early, but you got to show me what you got.
He's your
right
number
now.
3 starter. I mean, if there's not enough pressure, I mean, what are we gonna do, right? But look, I think the Mets and Tyler McGill are hoping that new split change that he learned is that put away pitch that he lacked specifically last year. And even when he was very good in 2022, he still lacked that put away pitch, right? He had that high fastball, but when his velocity dropped, he had no put away pitch. And I think they're hoping, and including myself and most Met fans, hopefully that split change is that put away pitch to a hitter, because that's important. Because if he has the arsenal, but when you go 7, 8, 9 pitch at bats, your pitch count gets up, you're going to be out of the game early. You got to put away some hitters. And if you do put away some hitters with that put away pitch, which we hope is that split change that he learned, then I think he's going to be okay, because he has the demeanor, he has that toughness on the mound, and he does have the stuff. Like, he's throwing 96 miles an hour. That's more than enough. It's just a matter of, does he have that put away pitch? And I think you'll see it early on, because if he doesn't have that put away pitch, it's going to be a long day for him. Now, run wise, I would say 2 or 3 runs, 5 innings, 2 or 3 runs. I'll take that. But they were saying in the chat, we already used the bullpen a decent amount already. And I'm not going to go crazy early on because the ton of depth we have, and we have a lot of arms that you can put out there and probably trust. So I'm not going to go crazy on usage for the pen yet. But when it gets into the middle of April and you continue to get only 4 or 5 innings from your starters, that's going to be a problem. And I want to bring up, before we go, with Luis Severino. He had a rough day yesterday. His velocity was down. When he was in spring, he was throwing 97, 98. He was consistently throwing 94 to 96. And I think that hurt him because he wasn't missing a ton of bats. His slider wasn't as sharp. And if he doesn't throw that 98, 99, he's going to struggle. I don't know what it was yesterday. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was the cold. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was nerves. I don't know. But not throwing 98, 99 and only throwing 94 to 96, he can't be in that range. Because if he's in that range, he's going to get hit like he did yesterday. So what were your thoughts quickly on Luis Severino?
Yeah, he looked off, man. He looked off. He even said it himself in the post game. He just wasn't locating the off-speed pitches well. We know the arsenal that he possesses, and it just wasn't a good first inning for him that really set the tone in the ball game. And it really looked like he was gonna escape out of some jams there, but Rhys Hoskins really did the bulk of the damage for the Brewers there against him. So, really, I think I think there was some positives to take away from the first start, but then again, how many times are we going to go through the rotation and talk about positives rather than just the results? So 12 hits over however many innings he went before he got pulled is just not good in general. So I got to see more out of him, like you just said, especially on the location of those off-speed pitches. He has everything to put it together. I've been raving about this guy on my channel in these streams in the offseason. So, listen, first start out, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but this is a prove it year for him, man. This is a prove it year for him. So he's going to need to prove it sooner rather than later, especially taking that into account. But one thing I want to note here, the Mets did see Colin Rea last year. Milwaukee Brewers versus New York Mets, believe it was sometime in June. 6.1 innings pitched and only gave up 1 earned run. So had some success against the Mets last year. I believe the only outing versus the Mets last year. So we'll see what happens to this offense, right? We talk about the lineup. We want to see what this offense is going to do from a guy that pretty much shut them down last season. Let's see if things change and let's get the win. And I do see over here in the chat, Mike is saying, let's go Knicks. They do have a game later on today.
Yep.
Tough loss a couple days ago. Let's go Knicks as well. We always bleed orange and blue.
Absolutely. So before we go, let's give our final score today. Chris, what do you got for the final score?
Game 1, I predicted 6-3, and you predicted 7-2, and that was not great.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I can't see the Mets being swept here. I got to just stick. Listen, I will not hesitate on this Mets pregame show. If the Mets are fumbling really badly, I will not hesitate to just predict the other team to win. I just simply don't think that the Brewers are going to escape with a sweep in this series. The Mets cannot allow that to happen, right? So I think the Mets show up today. I think they win a tight one, right? I'm still a little bit weary on McGill. I have some confidence in him, but I'm not going to sort of overstep that confidence by putting something out there like that's crazy. So I think the Mets win a tight ball game. I think the offense will show up again. Let me give a win to the Mets 5-4, and they go 1-2 on the season heading into the Detroit series.
Yeah, I think this game is going to tell a lot about the mentally soft aspect, or I guess way this team has been portrayed. If they show something here and win this ball game, regardless of how you win it, win the ball game, it'll give the team and the fan base a little bit of confidence, saying, hey, they can come back after 2 tough losses and what's been going down with the Rhys Hoskins situation. I think it's going to be a close game as well. I'm going to go 3-2. Mets win. It's going to be a tight one. I think they're going to pull it out late. I think the Mets bullpen is going to shut the Brewers down. I think McGill's going to probably give up the 2 runs. So you said 4-3, right?
5-4. 5-4.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 5-4. I said 3-2. So we both have a close game. So, guys, game 3 here. Mets are going to try to avoid a sweep. Tyler McGill, Colin Rea, whatever you want to call them. Game 3. Mets got to try to get this win here, and let's hope they do. So with that said, hit on that like button, guys, before you go. Subscribe to CP's channel and mine as well if you haven't already. Let's get some baseball going, guys, and see if the Mets can pull it out. Everybody have a good day. Enjoy your Easter. Chris, have a good day, boy. Get some rest, and we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you for watching the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on both channels. Have a great day, guys. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.